Last Pine Productions presents the New Way podcast. The New Way contains adult content and is recorded in advance. The following episode was originally recorded on November 29th, 2020. Listener discretion is advised.
Because you know how fathers and sons can be on Thanksgiving, drinking beer, watching the game, hugging each other in a way that suggests, I forgive you for everything.
And for all these reasons, I've decided to scalp you and burn your village to the ground.
Ugh, turkey. Ugh, giving thanks. Ugh.
I'm thankful for cable television because you can say words like "go f*** yourself" and "kiss my ass."
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me. I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Hello and welcome to the New Way podcast with Ben and Matt. I'm Matt. Who are you, Ben?
Ben.
That's right. You got it right. All in one.
Yeah, it's been
Well
a while.
Well, it's been a while.
We got that part. Right. at
We
least.
occasionally remember how the show starts in between our long hiatuses. What's the plural of hiati?
Hiati.
Hiat.
I hate I too, Matt.
It's a little too close to hentai for my taste, and I don't appreciate it. The good news is I did finally produce 5 episodes that we've recorded over the last 3 months or so since we last had an official live episode. Those are all live right now on where you listen to your podcasts. And that's episodes 142, 143, 144, 145, and 146.
And so this is the equivalent of what we would call a data dump on anybody who listens to the podcast. They're going to wake up and tomorrow morning and then look at their iPhone and have 5 fresh episodes all back to back to back to back.
It's like Christmas morning. It's not how we prefer to do the podcast, but sometimes it's everything kind of builds up and we get a little bit behind, and I finally got around to it. I'm going to try to keep on track with the next few that we do before the end of the year. But we produced I think we're at almost 40 episodes for the year, which is a record for us. So we've never produced that many episodes in a single calendar year. So that's pretty cool. And it's nothing to complain about. Most impressive. We're doing kind of a different episode to get us kind of back into the swing of things here. We kind of hoped that we were going to have Nick back on today, but there was some internet connectivity issues. But really, we just got through Thanksgiving, so we're recording this a couple of days after Thanksgiving proper, and it's been. This year, obviously, will go down in history as one of the most fraught years, I think,
Just
for most
weirdest,
people.
for sure.
Yeah. It's not even just like bad. It's weird is a great way to describe.
Yeah, it's so funny how I feel like, and this is like, just to be perfectly candid, it's one of those years where it's like in April I was just kind of like, man, this is kind of depressing, and then by July I was like, well, this is kind of a new normal. And by October, I am looking up therapists. By November, I'm in therapy.
Yes.
It's one of those, I mean that quite literally.
Yes, me as well. I mean, there's an industry doing very well this year, and that is therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's with all the changes and kind of ups and downs and ebbs and flows and us kind of trying to track everything, it's been bizarre. Originally, my mother was supposed to be visiting this week and was going to stay for 10 days. And that's not happening because she doesn't feel comfortable traveling down here, really. I mean, it's not so much that she doesn't feel comfortable traveling down here, but she feels like we couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all's well that ends well, because we're going to end up visiting them in Hilton Head after Christmas. So
Yeah,
in a much bigger house with a pool and some more stuff, activities that the kids can do, where we feel safe, where we're not like, kind of stuck in a bubble.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of there were a lot of memes going around, and I think I took one and I rewrote it in my head at least, but it was like in my version, it's better to have an IOU than the ICU, which is kind of the general idea. I'm never been one that's tied to like the dates of when things are supposed to be. Like my brother and I almost always celebrate Thanksgiving a couple of days after Thanksgiving just because he works. Christmas, we do things Christmas Eve or we do it whenever, like it just doesn't matter.
Sure.
So it's kind of like this year is just like, okay, it's a wash. Like there's a lot of things we're not gonna be able to get to, but it doesn't mean they're gone forever. It just means that like we have a year. We got to give up some stuff and deal with it. And I think that was sort of what my goal was for this podcast to get back is that sure, we love to like bitch about things and it is fun to hear us whine and debate and argue stuff from time to time. But I kind of just wanted to have a cast that was overall positive. That yes, it's been a weird and difficult year, but there also have been really good things that have happened, things that have arisen out of that. And I thought it'd be fun just to kind of discuss some of the things in our lives. And yeah, a lot of these are, I've veered a lot of these towards pop culture, but there's also just general, things that aren't necessarily pop cultural related, that I just think it's fun to focus on and think about. And hopefully we kind of hear back from you guys as well, as far as, what things are getting you through this. That's kind of like, keeping you going through all of the strife.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, like, obviously we want to hear from people too, like you can go on, Facebook or Insta or wherever, because we're always interested in hearing, kind of the stuff that other people have been, whether it's a new type of media that they're consuming or that maybe they've gotten into a specific like hobby or craft that they didn't really plan on. I think that this is that year of like, just unexpected things kind of popping about, and in some cases that's in productive ways. So
yeah,
or surprising ways. But yeah, it's obviously like those. Even though I mean we're everybody's dealing with the same shit, we're still alive.
Yes,
healthy for the most part.
Our podcast has not been canceled because they can't. It's the thing that there's no way to cancel us.
They can't take it away.
We can't. Yeah, we ratings don't matter. They don't care how few people listen, and neither do we. So it is forever there. I mean, I kind of the other thing that kind of put this in my head, and I'll sort of kick it off with this, but I've been super vigilant and careful and safe during this whole thing. I mean, Ben and I didn't see each other until last month, like middle of last month. And then I kind of had made this decision that I wanted to do this road trip up to see friends in Ohio and make like a stop along the way in Pittsburgh. And then of course, like as I'm gearing up for this trip, like the COVID numbers are like progressively hitting, and I'm started to panic. But I was really glad I went because, it was a nice progression because I hung out with Ben and Beth and their girls on Halloween, and got to kind of do like a little Halloween outside and watch Ben's genius remote control cooler be used to both bring candy to the kids and sanitizer as well as beer and wine for the adults. But it also scared quite a few kids that just didn't understand. Like it looked like this robot dog just like a eagerly
little tiny tank just rolling towards them on the
and they're all like, what are we supposed to do with this? But that was that. Yeah. And then I went, I drove, I took my Mini on the longest journey it's been on. I drove first to Charlotte, North Carolina and stayed a night there, and then drove to Pittsburgh where I stayed in the haunted Bly Manor. And legitimately I stayed at this hotel called the Mansions on 5th. If you ever want to Google it, it's like these two mansion homes that they've converted into a hotel, and it's very much looks like Hill House or Bly Manor, including I chose to stay in the like smaller house next to the mansion. And so I walk in there and there's like, it's very clear I'm the only person in these quarters. And it's just empty. And they have a lobby, which I think when it's not COVID time, normally would have like a receptionist and like someone to check you in, but they've just moved everything up to the main thing. So you walk in and everything's there like there should be people, but there are no people. Like it's just like a spinning chair behind the desk as if someone just left the room and you don't see them anywhere.
That reminds me of a time in 2016 when I went to Utica, New York. And there's a place, I mean, obviously Utica's not that big of a town, but it was around the turn of the 20th century, the 19th to the 20th century. It was like a big textiles producing town. It was basically like back then it was bigger than Syracuse. And then Syracuse ended up growing, and Utica kind of, let's just say they fell on hard times. But anyways, in like 1907, they built this 12-story which was so much taller than anything else in town. I mean, everything in town was like no taller than 2 stories, but they built this 12-story hotel, like luxury hotel, that was like the bee's knees, back in 1907. It was apparently this huge marvel or whatever, and then Utica kind of fell off, and so it was like something else, like from the 50s on. And then apparently in like 2010 somebody bought the building and they're like, no, we're going to reopen it as Hotel Utica. It's like one of the most haunted hotels. But it's one of those things. It's like I walk in and it's the one tall building in town, and it's the craziest thing. It's like white, it says Hotel Utica at the top or whatever, like the old sign. To look it up, it's bizarre. And so I remember walking in there. There were only 3 guests the night I was staying there. It was me, it was the guy I was working with, and like one other random dude. And we're the only 3 guests. But we walk in, there's a giant grand piano. The place is just empty, and there's nobody there. They had like one person working behind the desk. There was like one janitor. And that was it for this gigantic building.
Was it the Ivo Shandor hotel? And
yeah. Anyways, look it up. If you're ever going through upstate New York, I highly suggest staying there just because it's a trip. I'm like, yeah, it's one of the more interesting places I've ever stayed in my entire life. And there's like, I mean, it looks like The Shining. It is The Shining.
It's you forget also, like, being in Florida, we don't have a lot of like good classical old architecture in a lot of the places we're at. So you forget in like other cities, obviously in Pittsburgh, there's a lot of great old architecture. But yeah, it was just funny. And like, because I'm in there, and then I went, like just a block away was where my buddy's, in-laws where he lives. So we went and we hung out on the patio with like space heaters on, watching the election results come in and drinking rye, which was good because I was definitely toasty enough going back to the hotel that I was not scared. But that wore off by morning, and I packed up my bags and I'm walking. I go into like this little, you have to walk through the lobby to get back out to my car, and this fucking dude that works for the hotel is sitting in a chair in one of the rooms, but like all the way in the back, so that when you can't see him as you walk by unless you turn around, and you would see him in the back of the room. So I just walk through what I assume is his empty thing, and he's like, "Can I help you with the bag?" And fucking just dropped everything. I wasn't like. Then I also realized I wasn't wearing a mask because I just assumed. So I was like, "No, no!" Like, it scared the fuck out of me. Really, really pissed me off. Actually, I dropped a lot of crap. It was very embarrassing. But yeah, I had an awesome. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying that's the portion of every show that we're going to do from now on, where we spend 5 minutes talking about our fun hotel stories.
Yeah, that's there's we've got lots. I
actually have some really good hotel stories.
I'm sure you do. I definitely have. I mean, especially our dad was my brother's dad was very cheap. So I've stayed in some very choice establishments over my time on this earth.
I can only imagine.
But yeah, it was otherwise the trip was really great. I got to stay with my friends Mia and Steve. I saw our friends Terry and JR. And we had a civil society tasting, which was pretty fantastic. And the weather, I apparently brought the best weather they've had up there. It was like high 60s, maybe dipping into low 70s during the day. or like high 50s, 60s at night. You could get a fire going. It was awesome. So I am
Nice.
thankful for my trip to Ohio. And then I came back and I isolated for 14 days and no COVIDs. And despite convincing myself 3 times that I had a sore throat and I had it, I did not.
Psychosomatic.
Psychosomatic symptoms were largely exaggerated. So that's my first thankful is my probably the last trip I will take till spring.
The news of Matt's death was premature and inaccurate.
It's greatly exaggerated.
Cool. Well, yeah. So one of the things that it's been kind of a funny year as far as like content and stuff like that. One of the things I've been thankful for is that imagine had this happened like 20 years ago. Have we been in this very similar scenario where we're not as technologically savvy or advanced when it just comes to sort of day-to-day things? I can only imagine. I mean, they probably wouldn't have had the ability to continue to work on movies, TV shows, things that they have been able to do, fortunately, with things like contact tracing and kind of creating these safety protocols that are a lot easier to abide by. Sports, things along those lines. I mean, any professional athletes are basically wearing, GPS motion trackers and things along those lines, and then also so that way they can tangibly kind of quantify what type of contact they're having with people or places that they go. 20 years ago we wouldn't have had that. If this had happened in the late 90s, we would have been fucked. We would have had to basically just watch reruns and watch old movies, and it would have been sort of the same stuff over and over again. And it really is incredible that the machine has just kept on moving in a way where we've had sports, we've had new shows, new movies, new content, some of which were completed prior to COVID, but some of which were just made during COVID.
Yeah.
For various reasons or various methodologies.
Yeah, and I have both of those kind of digital production and streaming on there. But you bring up a really good point also, and just in general from a work standpoint,
Sure.
and so many other things. There are, as bad as we've been hit, and there obviously are industries that are getting demolished. The restaurant industry especially is just it's pretty heartbreaking what's going on with all of that. But that could have been 10 times as bad with other industries where you like we didn't have Zoom, you didn't have video conferencing or teleconferencing stuff. You worked on a computer, but not really. Like everything was still being done by paper. Like
exactly.
So many things would just either would have shut down.
It's so crazy how many jobs there are. I was just thinking about like at my company, there are so many jobs because back then, if we were working on tape, which is what we do, you're working with something tangible. I would say of the 70 jobs that are with my firm and sort of its sister companies, I would say only maybe 15 of them could have been done remotely, which is basically kind of sales and marketing. Those are the only things that could have been done in a remote capacity. Right now, there's basically like 3 jobs in our entire company that require us to be on site.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so it's, I think it's just as bad as it may have been. And I understand that some people have taken it harder than others, and other people are in situations that maybe aren't as conducive to keeping things on track during this time. It is pretty incredible that we've been able to kind of do what we've been able to do. And I like that. And that's not only from a pop culture standpoint, that's kind of across the board.
Yeah. And even what you're talking about with sports, like none of that would have been possible. There've been so many of these things that we kind of we do take for granted a little bit. And also, debate about whether it should be done or shouldn't. But like, there's so many things that have been able to happen, and that they've gotten better at with all of this. And on my list, as leading into that, is we also appear to have vaccines lining up for us in way faster time than most people, like even the experts, thought would kind of do it, which is, and it's sort of interesting because you've got the big pharma, this industry out there, and it's like they've done something good with their powers, which they don't often or always or ever sometimes do. But it's also kind of like I was talking to my brother about this. It's also like, well, yeah, but it's in their best interest to have living people to buy the rest of their drugs at the end of the day than to have people that are dying. So it is pretty amazing that we're pretty much on the cusp of a few options vaccine wise that will be rolling out, I mean, literally starting in this month in December. Which is just, that's a mind-boggling to me. I mean, we did not even admit that this was anything to even be starting work on till March. So to do this in 9 months is just like, it's crazy to me. But yeah, and I think on that pop culture thing, we can stick a little bit on that. Yeah, I mean, the idea of streaming content, even, let's not go back 20 years. Let's go back 10 years. When streaming wasn't a thing, we were still renting movies at video stores. Which would you wouldn't be doing that right now. You wouldn't be getting you wouldn't be touching a disc, taking it home, messing around with it, taking it back to a shop and having someone else, like you would be spreading this stuff constantly. So this idea that we now, we have things that are streaming, not just a little bit of streaming, everything is coming through, and they're still even releasing movies that way. I mean, we're getting the new Wonder Woman movie we're going to get in December or Christmas, which is fine by me. Like I'm okay with, and the same thing. It's like if this is for a year, we're still getting movies. Like it's like that's amazing to me. And the Mandalorian, of course, we're gonna spend some time here on because there's many reasons to be thankful for Mandalorian. But Mandalorian also is sitting so pretty as far as a content generation that they have built the perfect way to shoot a TV show during COVID. Whether they didn't plan it that way, but literally they are shooting in an actual bubble with nothing. And I've seen the behind the scenes of how they shoot this and the void. I think the room they go into, all this stuff. And every time I watch the show, I cannot wrap my brain around like how little there is that's actually real in what I'm watching.
I just call it Cerebro.
Exactly.
That's
it is like, I don't know. You're more attuned in general, Ben, I think because you're also always looking at shot design. And I think you're seeing movies often with what did this look like behind the lens, maybe a little bit more than I kind of fall into the movie magic realm. But like I legitimately watch these episodes of The Mandalorian and I can't, like, I literally cannot wrap my brain around that there's nothing, that street in the latest episode that he's walking down with all of the shops and the people selling stuff. I'm like, nothing is like, they've got a pavement that they've put there and like there's an actor and that's it.
Well, and they've got props.
A couple of props, but not even some of those, not like, not actually existing things.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, it's like the Truman Show, It's like this. They're basically. I think the real interesting thing is that back when the reason why that wouldn't have worked in the past, and the reason why, for example, you wouldn't project something and then film that projection as the background as a consistent thing, it just has to do with frame rates. Because the problem is movies, the way that we know them, are sort of the perception of your eye with normal motion is 24 frames per second, which is the reason why movies look like movies. If you pop it up to 30 frames a second, then that's more like television. Yeah, it's frame filling. You'll get a different feel or a different look because your eye can't perceive those 6 extra frames basically, but you can tell that it doesn't look
there's
the same.
Less blur. It's a little it's like things move too fast.
Yeah, it does move a little bit too fast. The only way that you can physically speed up or slow something down is like if you shoot at an advanced or a super high frame rate, like 60 frames per second, and then physically have a computer remove those frames, basically, the ones that your eye can't perceive. But anyways, when projection, one of the reasons why if you were ever shooting on film and you were shooting at 24 frames a second and you saw a TV, the TV would look weird. There would be lines going through it. And that's because the TV would be projecting at 2997 and not 2398. Basically the difference between the frame rates. So it was never practical. In order to project something, you would have to be doing it at 24 frames per second at the exact same shutter speed that the film camera was doing. And that's why, like, what they used to do is, if say there was a scene where, this is prior to transposing it with a green screen, but say somebody was watching a TV and on the TV there was a news report or something along those lines, they would have to film those and then slow them down to 24 frames per second and rebroadcast them on the TV in a very special way. Like, essentially, they had to make special TVs that would only broadcast that way, so that you wouldn't see a flicker or a flutter. So it was never practical. And now you can do frame matching, you can do all sorts of stuff. I mean, now projection, like digital, whether it's rear projection, LED projection, I mean, now you can do anything with it. You can, and everybody is shooting digital now too. So again, it doesn't really matter. You can match your frame rate to whatever you want to.
And what they're doing on Mandalorian is also so, like, the math that's going into how those shots are not just sped up, but they're twisted and like to make it seem like it's a background that's moving it the way that it should move behind it. It's
right, exactly.
It's crazy. And it's funny because that was, you took me to that movie, we went to see that movie that your friend worked on, Oblivion, or that I guess they had done by the comics company, which was one of the first movies to use that technology when they were in those, like, little bubble domes up there. They were using LED screens with, like, all the stuff around them. And that was 2013, like somewhere around then, I think 2013, 2014.
It was released in 2013.
Yeah. And they were just using, like, pretty easy stuff, like just Sky and whatever else on there. But where they've taken that and watching, like, Favreau work on Jungle Book and then Lion King and then eventually get to this show where, like, they can just, and I think the most impressive thing about it to me is that they're doing a lot of things I would have sworn to you ahead of time would ruin the show. They are not using the main actor all the time in the costume, yet they are getting a performance that 100% feels like it is Pedro Pascal in I don't ever feel him not being there, even in episodes where, like, he wasn't in episode 4. Like, he was not on set for that entire episode. Right. They are doing enough right on that direction of the acting. That's the big difference between, like, the prequels, where you were also shooting on stuff that's not there, kind of, and you're splitting things apart and you're shooting this part and this doesn't exist, but that does. And I think that's something that is not doesn't get enough credit on Mandalorian, is how much they are stitching together different things, and it always works. Like, I really very rarely does it feel clunky or McClunky. Or either of the two. It's a joy to watch that show. It really is, and it feels like it's being made by people that really care about the material.
Which is very clear. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that they care. So that's a big thing. But yeah, anyways, I mean, it's been. I think we don't even have to harp on it too much as far as Mandalorian's concerned, just because everybody loves it. I mean, it's on everybody's list. Friends of the podcast, the guys at United We Drink, they do, like, a last call every week, and they just talk about, like, is there something you want to mention, or whether it's a band or a movie or something somebody did or whatever. It's just basically a last thing. And I think that Mandalorian's been mentioned like 3 times, by various members of, like, just thankful for the Mandalorian. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, I mean, it really is one of those things that lives 100% up to the hype, and it's also just a very simple model at the end of the day as well, as they're drawing on all of this classic cinema and these tropes from the Westerns to the samurai movies to all of these things that they're just completely just saying like, hey, yeah, since this is episodic, let's do an episode that's completely mirroring this old film. And in different ways than Tarantino kind of does the same thing. They're just doing it as one-offs, so it's and then just applying the Star Wars skin to it, which is smart.
Yeah.
And cool also to see like people looking up old film now. And like, it's like people are actively going and researching these things and going, oh, I kind of want to watch this thing this is based off of.
Yeah. I'm going to watch Yojimbo.
Yeah. Which is insane. Like I imagine the Google searches for that film, like, went through the roof in the last several days just because of an episode of TV, which is that's crazy to me. But
yeah,
awesome.
It's really cool. It's been interesting too. Obviously, the major tentpole releases that we were very much looking forward to all pretty much got pushed. Tenet being the one exception, which I still haven't seen.
Comes out in a month on not a month. I'm sorry, 10 days on Blu-ray.
Yeah, so I'll probably end up just streaming it and watching it here at home, or renting it and watching it here.
Well, my brother doesn't listen to the podcast, so I can spoil this. But I bought the 4K Tenet, and I'm going to give him the Blu-ray, and I'm going to keep the 4K. So you and I can watch Tenet in 10 days whenever you want.
There you go.
Come on by. He doesn't listen, so he won't care. He won't know.
We'll have a Tenet date.
Yeah, pitching a Tenet date. Come on, man. Come on. Give me a little.
There it is.
There it is.
But so almost all of the major films that we were expecting this year are going to be released sometime next year. And I think at this point, really, besides Wonder Woman, which decided to kind of, I think they're smart actually.
Yeah.
Kind of they're going to be like the only non-indie film released around the holidays. And for example, I mean, there are still like 40% of the country doesn't give a shit about going to they'll still they'll go to the movies, and so I think it's going to make money. It's definitely going to get a lot of viewers on HBO Max. But it has been really interesting because there's been a lot of independent film, things that have been either made or pre-COVID. They realize, hey, this is a perfect time. People are needing content, and so I think that's one of those years where, for better or for worse, independent film has had a much bigger has been under the microscope a lot more. There are movies that have been released that have gotten just major audiences, like huge audiences. It's so many people watching them. But that never would have gotten that exposure in the past. So, for example, there's a film that was released last weekend on Hulu called Run, which is a small thriller starring Sarah Paulson, and is quickly became the most watched movie ever on their platform.
Wow.
Just because of word of mouth. This is a movie that may not have even gotten a theatrical release in previous years. And they had 72 million people watch this movie over the course of its first weekend. So equate that to a box office number.
Yeah.
Like if just the tangible quantification of that would be a 500, like it would be the biggest movie opening literally of all time if it was only that the people doing that in theaters. And so, yeah, it's kind of crazy that these movies, these little movies, they get a word of mouth and somebody's like, oh, have you seen it? Have you seen it? It's crazy. Have you seen it? It's crazy. So I was going to say that's a fun, clever movie. If you haven't heard of it, or if you want to watch something that's new, that's a very good little movie. Beth and I watched Happiest Season, which is a Christmas movie that was filmed.
Oh yeah. That's
the, but it was directed by Clea Duvall, who it's a gay love story. Girl brings her girlfriend, fiance person played by Kristen Stewart. It's Kristen Stewart's in I forgot the name of the other actor. She was in Tully.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. She was in *Halt and Catch Fire*, and
I want to say Mackenzie Davis, but Mackenzie Davis is the young girl.
Oh, Mackenzie Davis is the one I was thinking of that you were.
No, it is Mackenzie Davis.
Yeah, it is Mackenzie Davis.
Mackenzie Davis and Kristen Stewart play a couple. but Mackenzie Davis has not come out to her parents yet. It's a home for the holidays, but I have not yet come out and told my family that you're my girlfriend type of thing. So in this case, it's just like, oh, she's my roommate and she doesn't have a family. So that's the reason why she's coming and spending the holidays with us, which is, it's totally saccharine. It's very silly, but there's some really great laughs.
Sure. And it's
totally warm.
And of course, it's like it's this controversial thing online of people that are like, oh, because people are like, oh, this is great, it's representation in a holiday film, and all of a sudden there's people like, oh, what? It should only be about a good story. I'm like, dude, we have so many mediocre stories about just everything we've seen for a gazillion years. Absolutely, go ahead and slap a new skin on that and do something different with it. And
the thing is it's you've seen this movie 100 times, so it's kind of nice to have the little twist in there of the gay. And like for example, she was on Parks and Rec.
Aubrey Plaza.
Aubrey Plaza plays like an ex of Mackenzie Davis who lives in this small town still, and she's really great in that kind of role. Playing this sort of a woman who's actually out. Yeah, from in this small town. But no, it's well cast, and Clea Duvall is one of the more prominent. I mean, Clea Duvall came out of the closet very early in her career, and some would say it kind of destroyed her career. Yeah, for quite some time. I mean, she went from being in every Josh Hartnett movie to being in nothing for 10 years. Yeah.
I still always remember her. I first saw her in but I'm a Cheerleader, but then Carnival, which she was phenomenally good in.
Oh, she was really good in The Faculty.
Oh yeah.
I remember her from The Faculty just because
nothing wrong with The Faculty.
The irony of The Faculty is, Kevin Williamson wrote The Faculty. Yeah. And it was directed by Robert Rodriguez. The irony about The Faculty is, in The Faculty, everybody in her school thinks that she's gay, but she's straight, and she has the hots for
Josh.
Not Josh Hartnett, but the football player, the other guy who's now in Law and Order. Yeah, but yes, and the irony is that she was actually a gay actor and was like pretty much out at that point, but not visible, everywhere because she was going to have her career ruined. Which
that's awesome. I didn't know I kept hearing about that movie, but I didn't know she directed it. And I have not heard about Run.
Yeah, she wrote and directed it. Yeah. So Run, the premise of that, if anybody's interested in watching it, it's very, very small, very contained movie. It's Sarah Paulson plays the mom of a girl who is a paraplegic and also has many other health issues. Like she's got like asthma, and she's got like a skin problem. She's got a stomach problem. It's like at the beginning of the movie, they like list out everything that's wrong with her. So she's wheelchair bound and, obviously has to rely on her mom for everything. And then through sort of some chance discovers something that her mom had been hiding from her, and it devolves into a very tense thriller of kind of a mind game between mom and daughter.
I'm into that,
but with the obvious restriction that the irony of the movie is called Run, and this girl can't do anything. You know, but it's an empowering movie too. And the girl who played the daughter is an actual paraplegic, which is really interesting.
That's fantastic.
And she was phenomenal. I mean, she goes tete-a-tete with Sarah Paulson, Sarah Paulson's is intense.
She is an extremely intense actress. That's all. And this is what I like. This is kind of cool because you'll every so often send me movie recommendation. My brother and I didn't get to it this weekend, but I'm going to watch it this week. Which is the other one you recommended is Shithouse.
Right, and that's another movie that has gotten a lot of acclaim online, which is available, I think, on Amazon. But yeah, it was like a little indie film, and I told Nick when I was texting with Nick about it. I was just like, that movie that like Nick Santa Croce and I, our thesis film in film school, that movie is what we were trying to do. Like the emotions that are evoked in the movie Shithouse. I mean, it's a college movie. It's kind of about a guy who's doesn't really have. He's not confident, and he's not really sure, he's not having a good time at college, basically, and doing the normal college things. And he's anxious, and has some kind of general malaise. And it's just about him. And he meets a girl who's like an RA. And it's a progressive movie. But the funny thing is it has like, the movie it's going along, and I was just like, this is so good. This is so good. And I don't feel like I'm ruining anything for saying this. And there's a moment where it cuts to black, and had the movie ended there, it would be my favorite movie of this year. But there's like an extra 11 minutes at the end that's totally unnecessary. And it's just like a bow on a movie that didn't need a bow.
Have you like
very
looked into
weird.
whether or not that was like intentional or something the studio wanted,
I
or
didn't, because it's such a small film. It's like a micro budgeted, like $100,000 budget. And you can tell, I mean, it's shot well, but you can tell that the actors are all kind of, definitely not professionals in all cases. But no, it's a great little movie. And like I said, you'll know when you watch it. There's a part where there's a scene and it cuts to black. And I was like, so here's the analogy I would give you. It would be like, imagine watching Drinking Buddies, and then that scene happens where the movie ends, but instead it says 6 months later, and it shows them, and they both have new, Jake Johnson's married, or now it has a date or whatever, for his wedding with, Anna Kendrick.
Well, by the way, that I'm totally on board with any movie that ends with someone marrying Anna Kendrick.
And Olivia Wilde is now with Jason Sudeikis, who's the owner of the brewery, and they've got like a good thing going or whatever. And there's like an additional 6 scenes.
Yeah.
An indie. Listen, if you want to be overindulgent, you have to be Lord of the Rings. Okay, you can't have 6 endings when it's an indie film.
Well, and you know what? That's like, it's really funny because that's also something that like I think a lot of indie filmmakers can be concerned, right? They're like, well, maybe this is not going to be palatable for the audience at large, which is that always cracks me up. Of the original ending of Clerks, is Dante getting shot. Is literally Clerks ends, and then this guy walks in and holds him up and shoots him, and he dies, and that's the end of Clerks. And Kevin Smith was basically like he goes, his only reasoning was every indie movie I'd watched ended with this like shocking or profound moment, so I like had him get killed, and that was going to be the way the movie ended. And I think it did end like that for some of their like screenings, and then they redid it. And reshot around that and didn't make it, so that he died at the end of the movie. Which,
interesting.
And then Kevin Smith comes in as not Silent Bob, just another character, and he steals cigarettes. That was the original end of Clerks.
Wow,
not a great ending. I've seen it. You can watch it on it's on the movie release. But so one of the things I want to bring up that I'm thankful for, that we don't talk about a lot on this, especially oddly enough because we are a podcast, but I got turned on to a new podcast that I absolutely love. And I got into a couple of them on my drive, but this one specifically was up my alley. It's called Smartless. It's a great little gimmick for it. The podcast is Sean Hayes, Will Arnett, and Jason Bateman, who are all apparently very good friends in real life. And the gimmick is that one of them scouts a guest, and they bring them to they get them to call in or to zoom in, but the other two don't know who it is until they show up on the screen.
Oh, okay.
So like the first episode, so they have these elaborate introductions that are always like throwing them off the scent. Like this person was like graduated #1 in their class, and they were originally interested in photography and blah blah blah. And they're always trying to guess for that. That happens for like a few minutes of the podcast, barely, and then they get into it with the guests. So the other two, what's great is one of them's prepared with questions and direction, and the other two are just like. But the thing that makes it work is a lot of the people they're bringing in are also friends of theirs. So like Dax Shepard is the first guest. They all are like friends with Dax. Maya Rudolph has a phenomenally good episode where I've like learned, I know a shit ton about SNL, but she talks about how she is one of the few cast members that didn't actually audition. She got brought in on a writing deal with Zach Galifianakis before he was anybody, like before he was even like a stand-up. And They worked in an office together for 2 weeks at the very end of a season. He didn't get picked up, but she got asked to stay on and then became a performer. But she goes, yeah, don't tell anyone this. I think the only person on camera on SNL, especially other than like those years where they had like Billy Crystal and stuff, that never actually auditioned to be on SNL.
That's insane.
But made it on there. It's
Well, I know that. I mean, it's kind of interesting though, because I think that's like when they, like when the Lonely Island joined SNL, that was one of the things. Is it was like, no, like Yorma and Kiva are gonna be writers.
Yes.
You know, like they're kind of, they're gonna do their thing and do the writing, and we're gonna have Sandberg as the performer,
and they're gonna direct. That was
Yeah.
they got to direct the shorts. That was the big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And but it's, you think about it now, it's just, and I mean, they're great performers, so it's kind of funny that because they never were on a skit, they were never on the show.
Yeah, all they ever did, they only ever showed up
only
in
behind.
the shorts occasionally, but very rarely even on those. Like they'd show up for a second. But
it was only much later, like it was after they had actually made a name for themselves that they would show up in the shorts, like Jizz in My Pants or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I think it's an hour-long podcast. They are all pretty much effortlessly funny with one another. And it's funny is that the first couple
It's a fun
episodes
group.
I was not on board with Sean Hayes, like it just wasn't working. And then they I think they very quickly realized that. So then now it just turns into Will Arnett and Bateman like goofing on him, but he's so affable that he just laughs at like everything they say about him, and it's great. There are some just really, really phenomenally good stuff in it. They also got some amazing guests in the fall. They had Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris like right before they got on before Kamala got on the ticket. You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry.
That's okay. No, they had Kamala Harris on the day before she got tapped for VP.
Oh, cool.
And then they brought Stacey Abrams on. Where I didn't know this. I learned that Stacey Abrams writes romance novels under a pen name, and has like a set of super successful romance novels that like she goes, it's like public knowledge. And they go, are you did you do the name change because you were embarrassed? And she goes, no, I was in law school writing legal journals, and I didn't want like people Googling for a legal journal and pulling up hidden sins, and this thing. But yeah, it's a great show. I recommend the episode with Maya Rudolph is really good. The episode with Dax Shepard actually is really good. Robert Downey Jr. is good. The Robert Downey Jr. episode is pretty funny because Jason Bateman had a massive drug and drinking problem in his wild youth, but he was like on the low rent side. So when he and Downey start swapping stories, it's just sort of funny that like Downey's are just a little bit more expensive. And Bateman's like, oh no, I was at the Marriott Hotel, Airport Hotel. And they laugh. He's like, no, I lived at the Marriott Hotel, Airport Hotel for years. And that's where I did some of my biggest drug use at that place.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it's good. The other podcast I listened to that I really liked is Alec Baldwin's podcast. And if you're a film geek, I have to say it's a great listen just because he manages to turn off the arrogance and really just get into like the two episodes I listened to. One was Barry Sonnenfeld, who directed Addams Family and Addams Family Values and Men in Black and also Wild Wild West, which they do talk about, and Angelica Houston. But like Baldwin gets on there and he's like just starts quoting lines from Addams Family Values, like full parts of Joan Cusack's speech. And he's like, how is she not the funniest like female on the planet? Why does she not do more comedy? And then just starts quoting it. And that's where I'm like, he's a complete film nerd. So when he gets Angelica Houston on, of course he's like, holy shit, I get to talk about John Huston and I get to talk about you and Jack Nicholson and all those years. And like, it's pretty amazing to watch somebody that has been in the business as long as he has, like just sitting and jawing about movies. What is going on? I honestly, it sounded like someone was watching porn in the background, and then I think I caught it as being Sully.
That is Sully.
Okay,
Sully
that
is
legit sounded like Beth is watching porn behind you right now.
So he really wants me to take him out right now. I know that we said that we were going to keep this as a shorter podcast, so because otherwise you're going to have a screaming dog in the background. He's over here just like staring at me with puppy dog eyes, and he's just like making.
I just know that like a moment ago, Ben had to like have like some sort of conversation with someone off camera that I assume is Beth. And then like 2 minutes later, all I hear in the background is like,
she was looking for a game for the Nintendo Switch, but actually now she was just looking for the right porn.
she found it.
She was
Oh man, I was gonna power through because I'm like, I think she's watching like there's maybe a sex scene on in a movie behind her or something. That is super funny. All right, so one more from you, Ben, and I'll do one more, and we'll call the episode.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say one other thing. I did want to briefly mention a movie that's kind of cute and fun that came out COVID times. Another one that I think also got a lot more play because of its release model is Love and Monsters, which is kind of Zombieland riff, a post-apocalyptic movie where like the monsters have taken over the world due to like spores that came from outer space or something, and then they basically just made everything grow. So like the animals are still kind of like human, like animals that are on Earth right now. They're just like 50 times bigger.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are the monsters, like, they have to fight giant ants and all sorts of shit like that. And it's Dylan O'Brien's the main character. He's from in the Maze Runner movies. It's one of those things I remember seeing the trailer for and just being like, this looks terrible. And then it came out and it's like a 90% on the tomato meter. And like everyone's just like, no, it's fun. It's like for what it is, it's actually clever. It's got some really good heartfelt moments. Yeah. And I looked it up. And the guy who directed it did a movie like 4 or 5 years ago, I think. I think it's called Five Fingers of Freedom, which is a South African drama. And I mean hardcore, like family drama. This is the only other thing he's done. So it's like, obviously he was kind of like, they probably got this young South African guy who comes over, does this multicultural movie that's wasn't that huge over here, but I think it won like the equivalent of best film in South Africa that year. And they're like, get this guy a meeting in Hollywood. They bring him in. They're like, here are the projects. Pick which one you want to do. And he picks Love and Monsters. So,
they've flirted with this concept on TV every so often. Probably the best version of it I remember was a show called Action with Jay Moore, where he plays a movie producer. But man, I would absolutely just watch I would be very ready to watch a show that was just someone who took movie pitches. Like, that is literally their job, is that, and then they are the ones that also have to pitch to new directors, like somebody like this. It's like, hey, so we saw you did this really good art house thing. We have this movie pitch here. Yeah. Let's see if you're the right fit for it, and just put those together, because that's what a bizarre business.
Well, I know a lot of times. I mean, like what'll happen is a studio will basically say, hey, we want you to direct something for us, or whatever, and then they'll say, here are the 10 projects that we have that are like hot right now. I mean, that's what actors do too, is they're just like, what scripts are floating around that would be perfect for me, and then they get to pick from all of these different projects. And so I'm assuming that's because he didn't write it. He had no writing credit on it. He was just the director. So you have to think that the studio, I think it was Fox pre-merger or something, when I have no idea. 20th Century Studios, maybe it was Universal. No, it was Universal. It was definitely Universal, actually. So maybe Universal comes in and they're just like, hey, here are 5 projects. Which one of these would you have the most interest in directing? But yeah, it's just very strange, because it's like, it feels, going from a really kind of gritty South African drama to a movie that's, I mean, it has that same sort of mise en scène that Zombieland does, where it's very tongue in cheek, it's very playful. It's got populated with really good actors, really good kind of character actors. So anyways, that was something I would have watched, and I think a lot of people, like I said, you would have thought it was just kind of passable, but I watched it because it was new and because it was available. It ended up being kind of fun.
Nice.
It was kind of a cute movie. I know our best mom enjoyed it. She watched it with us while she was here.
I will have to check that out.
Yeah, it's totally. I mean, it's totally worth the time kill. But the last thing I wanted to mention is and this is one of the things that I've talked about, is you end up watching a lot of stuff that you never would have imagined consuming, or they just never would have been on your radar or peripheral. And like I said, for indie film, I feel like this is a really good year for that, because a lot of films that have been released are really or that are getting some play maybe would have been completely passed over in past years. So it's holiday season now. We're currently recording this on the 29th of November.
That's correct.
So we're full on that. The tree is up, the lights are on.
I can see the tree in the reflection of your.
We've got an elf. We've got an elf on the shelf. They got injured today, so the elf had to go through triage. Well, because the whole thing is the elf's supposed to be magical, and you're not supposed to touch it.
Yeah.
And, anyways, so the elf is what I should say is the elf is magical.
Okay.
And should you touch your elf? Oh, by the way, our elf's name is Snowbell.
I got in trouble for touching my elf when I was a kid.
I'm sure.
But yeah.
So many times. But should you touch your elf, the elf would lose its magical powers and wouldn't be able to travel back to the North Pole to report on whether you'd been good or bad.
That's how they do this.
That's how they do this.
I see.
So this morning, our elf Noel was found in our tree with an ornament that looks just like, or Snowbell, sorry, was found in our tree with an ornament that looks just like Snowbell. So that was today's little gift, a little tchotchke that she brought back from the North Pole. However, we realized that Margot realized, I think through a technicality, that she could not physically touch Snowbell. However, she could shake the tree and move Snowbell. This is, by the way, she's having full-on conversations out here with it.
Yeah.
So so Snowbell fell out of the tree, and fell onto the ground. And I haven't checked, but I think that Snowbell is writing some sort of scathing letter to Margot and Luna for endangering her elf life.
That is one wacky game show you got going on over there, my friend.
Hey, man, this is
there is a lot to unpack there, man.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, that's an aside. What I was going to say is, we were scrolling through movies, and we were trying to convince, I forgot which of my daughters it was, but we were trying to, we were wanting to watch a holiday movie over our holiday break. And so the girls, we were trying to get them to watch Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, which I don't believe I have seen since the theaters.
Wow.
I saw it twice. I do remember I saw it twice in the theaters.
Soon to be ex-president Donald Trump.
Yes, featured. I know.
Yeah.
So I was just like, yeah, I totally watch that again. That would be fun. But one of the girls didn't want to watch it, and so I'm just flicking through, and I land on this movie called, and it's the reason why I kept saying it, is Noelle, which I had no idea this movie existed. It's Anna Kendrick playing the daughter.
Oh yeah, this came out last
Santa
year.
Claus.
Yeah. This came out.
And Bill Hader plays the guy who's supposed to be the new Santa. How did I miss this movie?
You do. You know this movie because we talked about this. Because this, I don't even know if I can tell this story on air. No one listens to our show, but I shouldn't probably tell this. But I know someone who knows Josh Gad very well. Okay. And Josh Gad was hanging out with Bill Hader and goes, I saw you're in this Noelle thing. He goes, I passed on that movie like 6 times, and I do anything. What? Why did you do it? And Hader just spelled out the word divorce. That was all he answered about it, and that is the Noel. That's the story. All I know about that movie is that Gad was like, I turned down that script several times, and Hader's like, well, I was getting divorced, and I needed the money.
I needed the money. No, well, it was one of those things where I'm just like, how? First off, it's not good. But it's not.
But Ben is directed by the writer of Miss Congeniality. It must be good.
Gosh, oh my gosh. What I will say is that, I mean, just by virtue of the app performers alone,
Sure.
it's perfectly passable for a kid's family holiday movie. But I'm just like, how did I never hear about it? Like, and I think very purposefully, Anna Kendrick, Bill Hader, probably many of those other people involved were like,
it came out last Christmas alongside the Santa Claus movie with Kurt Russell. They both came out on Netflix for Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which now has a sequel.
Christmas Chronicles, or the Chronicles of.
You know, what's
Santa
funny is
Claus.
I might have to get this movie for my mom, because the guy that directed it also directed music and lyrics with Hugh Grant and
That's a good
Drew
movie.
Grant. My mom loves that movie. So she might like Noel.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll
Listen,
see about that.
she
But I
doesn't
just
like Anna
thought it was
Kendrick,
funny
so
'cause
probably won't
I
like her.
never would have, like, in any other year, I would have been like, you know,
I think I tried to get people to watch it last year, and I was like, no.
no,
Like,
can't do that.
But I wanted,
can't
no,
go that direction.
I don't want to do this.
No, that's the thing, is I was just like, I'm watching an Anna Kendrick, Bill Hader movie, and I never heard of. Like, I've literally never heard of this.
That
And
is
if
super
we
funny.
talked about it, then
No,
I
we
was
literally, it was
probably
just
as
the
confused.
anecdote. The anecdote
Just
made me
Josh
laugh.
Gad.
Like, I thought that was
Yeah.
just really funny. It's just like divorce.
That's funny.
That's too great. Well, I think there's lots to be thankful for. I know some of us are fairly thankful elections went the way they did. I'll be honest, elections aside,
I'm thankful it's over.
I'm thankful that they're over, but I'm also super thankful for fucking Mayor Pete coming out hot pre-election on all of the news networks and being a veritable badass out there, and just legitimately kicking ass and taking names. And man, did that make me super excited for where things could go in the future. I've never seen someone just more ready to just put people in their place with knowledge, and that's something we've been missing for a little while.
He's the gift that keeps on giving.
He's
I'm
fantastic.
very happy when he said he is not planning on giving up public service and that he's going to continue. So,
Well, hell yeah. See where he gets in this cabinet. We know it's going to happen. He's got to be in some way. I mean, has to be. We'll see.
You'll see.
We'll see. But that's what I'm thankful for. And I'm thankful to be back on New Way with Ben here. We will probably be trying to record maybe in person in the next few weeks or so, and get some more episodes out to you guys before the end of the year. But probably not a lot, maybe two or three or so, maybe before we get out. I'm going to try to get this one out live in the next day or so. But thank you so much for listening to The New Way. And please, if you want to be on The New Way, if you want to suggest a topic, anything that you're interested in, we really would like to get more participation with other people. I think that's the one thing I also took away from Smartless is I think we do well having new people and people to talk to and interview. So if you just know somebody that you think would be fun for us to interview on here, we will interview them, and we'll do a good job. We're no slouches in that department. So if you know someone that wants to be on the show, let us know, and we'll get them on. Otherwise, we will talk to you on the next episode. Cheers.
Cheers.